Welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast on a Drinks Giving Wednesday. I am Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegel. How you doing tonight, buddy? Different venue for me.
Definitely different venue. Brian has traveled east to record tonight's episode. How's the trip down?
Not bad, man. Not bad. It was a little bit traffic heavy on the way in.
Tunnel?
We did have a couple big accidents actually that went past. A couple folks in the trees in the ditch on the side of 64. So a little crazy. Thankfully, we weren't involved in any of that. So
good to hear.
We got here in a not record time, but we did 2.5 hours, which for a Thanksgiving weekend, not too shabby.
So no issues with the tunnels?
Tunnels weren't bad. It was everything kind of before that, yeah.
Very nice, man. Very nice. By the way, I joke about Drinksgiving. If everybody hasn't listened to the radio or the Twitter or the Facebook, today is the single largest drinking day in America.
Yep.
I'm going with the normal here. I'm not going anything high level, although some people, do take it overboard on Thanksgiving Eve.
I've had many of those nights, man. I remember some of the wildest drinking nights I ever had were coming back from college to home for Thanksgiving. Yep. And heading over to the world of sports and throwing down for a while, and then heading over to somebody else's house after that and throwing down some more.
Well, that, and remember before that became thing, remember Paradise Club?
Yeah. You could walk.
True. That was always fun, but you get to see everyone. We're older now, obviously. We're prepping. Brian's down at in-laws. I'm here at the house. We'll all be cooking tomorrow, not suffering from hangovers. But Brian, it's been a fun week. It's been a short week. Happy Friday.
Yeah, we made it.
Night.
Yeah.
And let's jump. We got a lot of stuff to go through. Obviously, it's Hate Week, the Hate Week, Commonwealth Clash, sponsored by Smithfield. If you didn't buy your bacon or your ham or your sausage, go get some before Saturday.
Yep.
Let's jump, Brian. Let's go to the JC presser. We got to hear clips of it, got to see some other things tweeted, and let's talk about essentially he basically said they have made, as of Monday, no decision on the starter at quarterback for the Hokies.
Yeah.
Does that shock you that it took one game?
I don't know if it shocks me, but it doesn't surprise me that they're keeping their options open. And this could be more of we're going to see some of what we saw in the first half last week with Braxton out there some, Connor out there some. And, it might just be something where Connor gets the first series reps over Braxton and vice versa. And then we just kind of see them, go with what's working, switch it up. Could be that Braxton is still banged up. They're making a decision whether they want to put him out there. And it could just be they liked enough of what they saw from Connor where they feel like that gives them the better chance to win. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that sentiment, but that's kind of where we are. I mean, Braxton hasn't played well enough where he's forcing that issue, but I feel like Braxton overall gives us more elements of the offense to play with, even if Connor does a couple things better than Braxton does.
Yeah, definitely does a couple things better. You mentioned on Sunday, he pushes the ball downfield better. He's obviously got a bigger arm than Braxton, obviously some accuracy issues there. But the other piece is if it's the banged up piece. I mean, the only upside is UVA's future defense, which we'll talk about later, is now going to have to take into account 2 potential quarterbacks starting, not 1.
Yep.
And again, Connor averaged 6 yards a carry last week. We went 20 for 130.
Yeah.
Now the bigger issue I have with him, and depending on what the offensive line looks like, there's where Braxton is to me. When you get him back there and he feels the pressure, he scrambles and goes. Connor's almost like tap, tap, tap the ball. Like, no, dude. If it starts breaking down, you've got the legs, look for a hole and just run.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I see.
And I think that's just coming with like comfort in the pocket, understanding where the reads are, understanding where the timing is. I think that's just something where Connor just doesn't have that yet. I think Braxton sometimes comes out of that too quick,
yes.
but Connor doesn't have a feel of when to come out of it yet.
It's
so
true.
I think that's probably the biggest thing that he's dealing with. And overall, I think that's going to be the bigger issue with if you roll out there with Connor is that you don't have the relationship with the receivers and you don't have that timing in the backfield and things like that Braxton has kind of worked all season kind of getting comfortable with.
Yeah, and that's the biggest difference is just reps to me. But also the thing you always talk about, he's more comfortable running. Well, he's had apparently the guy in his ear all year. One read, go.
Yeah.
Where, it's second nature to him right now. So, yes, you all just saw me pick up my remote and click. I am waiting the Hokies hoop game versus Memphis to start here. And obviously the first game ran over. Something else JC mentioned, and I wonder if it'll do this. You talk about going back and forth. He mentioned they rode the hot hand. Connor played okay. I wouldn't call it hot. It's not like he went out there and took us on 3 consecutive scoring drives, but maybe that's what we see in the first quarter. They both get a couple series, and whoever is really moving the ball, that's who we stick with.
Yeah, and there were some plays where Connor probably didn't get us the first down that Braxton would have gotten us, but there were a couple plays where between his legs and his arm, he probably got his first downs that Braxton probably wouldn't have thrown or wouldn't have got to. I think in particular on that 4th and 6, the pass out there to Lofton. I don't know if that's a completion, or at least, I don't know if it's even thrown if it's Braxton. So that's kind of the difference you get there. Sometimes not knowing things, you take a little bit more calculated risk with the football because you don't have that comfort. So I don't know if this is a scared money don't make money type game or what, but
well, in this game in general, scared money don't make money. But I tell you what could make is 3 guys who were mentioned in the presser being Data Gay, Trey Turner, Leonard Smith, Brock Hoffman. Let me ask you, Brian, of these 3 guys, who absolutely has to play Saturday to give us the best chance to win?
It's got to be Trey, but it's very close with him and Lacita Smith. I think it's pretty close there. I think we're doing okay without having Brock in there. Johnny stepped up pretty well, and while he doesn't necessarily give us the raw upside that Brock can give us on a certain play, he does do a better job of consistency. I think that's the trade-off there is that I think at this point in the season you'll take the consistency over the high-end ability just because you're already missing potentially other pieces. So
yeah,
I think either Smith or Trey being out hurts us more. Hopefully we get Trey back. Love to see him be able to finish out his career here with the Hokies. Made the announcement this week that he's heading to the NFL. Going to give that a go. So congrats to him, and hope he does well. Looking forward to seeing what he can do with offseason and the combine and all that stuff. So,
yep. Now, if you recall during the presser, JC kind of mentioned Trey could have been good to go in the second half, but he was held out for precautionary. Lacita did not start at all. So hopefully that holdout was to get him back for this week. And again, we ran the ball fine. Pass pro was not as good, but I think we know we're more of a running team, so I think maybe that's why they held him out. Something that was very interesting I found in that interview was after kind of putting the pieces together, maybe it makes sense of why we didn't have a good pass rush with the defensive line. JC discussed how he really missed being able to make adjustments with his defensive line group. If you
Yeah.
recall, during his opening presser, he mentioned he worked with the ends, Bill worked with the D tackles. I'm assuming during the game it's the same way. I got the D end group, I got the D tackles, we come together, here's the adjustment. We're making you coach your guys. How big is that? Because it's probably a GA or Bill trying to do everybody. How difficult is that for someone like Bill? Like this year, it's like I focus just on the G tackles. How difficult is that now? Now it's your whole group.
It's not super difficult, but it definitely is an extra element that you've got to think about, because when you're on the sideline, you're having to kind of think about the entire line and then how you're going to communicate that, and then you're going to communicate different things to the different position groups there, because it's going to be a different mode of adjustment in the game as you go along. So it definitely is something added there, but you are kind of evaluating as you're going along anyway. You just have a little bit more to evaluate and then a little bit more to discuss with the team.
Yep. So that's why I asked you about it. You know, hopefully a second week, it's better to get the adjustments quicker. Let's also talk about something else. Would Justin Fuente had ever discussed how J.C. Price talked about that onside kick?
No, definitely. I don't think that would have been a move that Fuente would have went with to begin with, and then roll the dice. Said he asked his defense to bail him out if it didn't work.
He asked it, but then he said it. He said it in a press conference.
Yeah,
which is just so appealing, right?
It's refreshing.
It is. It's like, oh my gosh, like that's exactly probably what any coach would have said. How many coaches would walk in there on Monday and say, yeah, I told the defense what we were going to do, and I told them if I screwed it up, y'all got to help us.
Bail me out.
But it
helps that he works on the defensive side of the ball to begin with. He's got that type of relationship with them where he can say, hey, we're rolling the dice here. Pick up my slack if I'm wrong.
Yep. Another big thing probably not done by Justin Fuente was bringing in Nikki Giovanni to speak with the team this week. A treasure at Virginia Tech, you know, and it's why we continue to say, and it's, you know, Dwight Vick said it this morning. We've said it on this podcast. JC needs to be retained regardless.
Yep.
Because for a new coach, if you need someone, and maybe if we think about what happened with Fuente when he came in, he had Bud and everything. Bud wasn't a graduate of Tech. Yep, Bud had been coaching there here close to 30 years when it happened, so he was a Virginia Tech. But I think having a Virginia Tech man, just get that coach in and literally almost tour guide them, right? Show them around, show them places, make them think.
Talk about the history, talk about what happened here, talk about what these places mean to you and how you can use those to sell to recruits, to sell to donors, to sell the program to everybody.
It's very true. And
because more than likely the next head coach is not going to be a Hokie grad or a former Hokie player or anything like that.
And that's the big piece. It's not likely going to be. I don't think there's anybody out there right now that has that potential sorry, I'm trying to get the game on here, folks, and the ESPN app is screwing with me. But you just need some, and the way it seems is Fuente never bought into the culture, and I think he showed respect to Beamer, but I don't think he ever understood what the town means to anyone that is a fan. If you're a fan of Virginia Tech, the town of Blacksburg, you should have memories in that town. We do.
Yeah.
If you're a fan, you've been there, you should have memories at certain places. I know, for me, it's probably between Tots and Fox Ridge and a couple other places. I know where yours is, dude. Not every time we go down there, right?
Yep.
And the old trick to get in there that was taught to you, and then,
I wonder if that's still the case, man. I don't know if they changed the technology or updated the doors or anything since then.
It's true. And back in 2019 when we went down, you were like tempted, like, should I go try it? I'm like, dude, we're 36 years old. No, we don't need to do this.
Yeah, that might come off wrong. I had it was enough of a faux pas when I was saying those things in like my early 20s.
It's true. But, the next coach needs that. And I think having someone like JC, because especially I think with JC, maybe it's even more so. JC, who had been away from home for close to 20 years, comes back and he relives those pieces. And his wife is a Hokie Hall of Famer. His wife played here. They met here. It's that guy you need to know everything.
Yep.
Right, Brian, let's hit this real quick before we go into these other topics.
Sure.
Darrell Bailey hits the portal. Defensive lineman switches to offensive lineman. Obviously, this is probably going to be the first of many. Any shocker there, or is it one of those things where you almost want to say, "Hey, man, can you just wait and see who the coach is going to be?"
I mean, this is the further attrition from that 2020 class, right? We're
what is it now, 5?
5. And really the best 5. Not that was a great class, at least in terms of rankings, but you got 5 gone from it, and it's 5 of the best 6 in terms of those rankings. So,
who's the only one left now?
Who was it? I think it was one of the running backs.
Jalen Hampton. Jalen Hampton has not been with the team for a while, so. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I get if you're going to do it, but to me, I would tell every kid who's there, wait to see who the new coach is before you start making these decisions. Because this could easily someone could come in that recruited you or you had a good relationship with, and the next thing you know, you're in the portal and you're going to have to walk back into their office and say, "Hey, I'd like to come back." And then it becomes a whole different circumstance, right? Like, well, dude, you didn't even know I was coming here and you just left. What type of mentality are you in?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, because if we look at it, we're more than likely going to have an answer on this thing by the middle of December. Nobody's getting a jump on this situation by doing it now. In terms of the portal and everything else, I mean, if you're getting it done before late signing day, I think you're fine, because you kind of position yourself to be kind of that either completing a class or kind of be that filler once a class is officially finalized. I know some people want to get a jump and get enrolled for the winter going into the spring, but I think you can still do that with a early December portal visit versus having to wait until later. So that's kind of where I think this situation is. It's going to be interesting to see if he hangs around or if he kind of already has an idea of where he's going. So that's why he went ahead and did it.
Yeah. Now, if that's the case, if he already knows where he wants to go, like we mentioned when we had our portal episode, just a few months ago, recruiting's not stopping.
Yeah.
You want to make a bet that the second Justin Fuente was fired, somebody who liked Darrell Bailey from when he was being recruited didn't text him, "Hey, sorry about, saw Fu got fired. I know you really loved him as your coach. Hey, you know how much we liked you. Just keep us in mind. Hit me up." There's because the NCAA is such a F up, there's no sort of guidelines on that, right?
No.
You can't say, well, you can't recruit. Like, you can still have the relationships. So again, the NCAA screw up, which is never a shot, essentially is it's like tamper season, right? In the NBA, the NFL, and any other major league sport.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I imagine that there's some relationship still there. It's just a couple years back at this point, and Bailey was a guy that was asked to switch positions because of a need. Really only saw action in one game against UNC. I think that was kind of when they were still mixing up the line to see what type of rotations that was going to look like. So, I get it from his perspective. If he knows what he wants to do and he prefers that defensive line, which that may be the case, that might be one of the things that was holding us back here as well, was that he's asked to switch positions. His coach isn't there anymore. Likely going to lose most of his offensive staff. Might be a good chance to kind of hit the reset button for him.
Yep, and he's still a freshman, and he hasn't played, so he's going to walk in elsewhere at the one-time transfer rule as a freshman. He's not going to have to sit. So it is what it is. We're going to see more. We'll talk about him as they come around.
Yep.
All right, something me and you wanted to hit before this game, just to kind of put a reset on. Hey, I finally got the game on. We're down 10-7, 5 minutes in.
Yep.
All right, job openings. Now, one guy that had been mentioned with numerous folks, you potentially saw him go in the SEC. Hugh Freeze gets extended at Liberty.
Yep.
I'm a little shocked by that he would take such an extension. So it's either I wonder if he's just been told by schools, you got another 3 to 4 years before anybody's going to touch you. You've been there a couple, you're doing the remake tour, you're still showing us you can coach, but nobody wants to deal with that potential backlash.
Yeah, I think that's some of it. I think it just is, one of those things where you get a reputation, and I think they want to see a little bit larger sample size. And Liberty obviously is completely content with having him. So they made a play to go ahead and keep him in-house, pushing him over $4 million a year. And I don't think anybody else is ready to give him much more than that to draw him away from Liberty. So unless he's getting an opportunity that he can't turn down, then that kind of puts him riding Liberty a little bit longer until that opportunity comes his way.
Yep, I agree with you on that 100%. I think he's just going to wait it. And again, I think he's been told, because I think a team like LSU would have taken a risk on him in a heartbeat. He came in that division. He beat Saban. He had him competitive. He had good recruiting classes for various reasons. But I think he's been told, you've still got a few more years before you're allowed back into the big boy ranks.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, let's run through these schools, and let's just kind of say, are we competing with them? Are we not competing with them? So I'm going to throw the first one here because the smoke's all over the place. The Florida Gators. Competing, not competing?
Absolutely competing. Probably on this list, the school we're competing most directly for at what we consider higher end evaluations that we're aiming for in terms of our targets, whereas that's probably their first or second tier targets as well. So yeah, they're probably at the top of the list in terms of who we're fighting for the next head coach.
I agree. I think something you said the other day, I think our first choice is probably their third. I really believe that. You said it the other day, and I'm gonna back what you said. You kind of said he's up there, but he's not their one. Because I think what you made the point of the other day, if he was their one and he really wanted to go there, it'd already be done.
That's kind of what I was thinking. If he was their one, if our one was his one, was their one, then it'd already be a done deal. Not saying that we can't compete with the same targets that Florida's targeting, but I mean, when you look at the resources, when you look at the facilities, I mean, there's a lot of things that stack up. The only thing that really doesn't stack up is that it's a little bit harder to win in that division.
There you go. Agreed 100%. All right, next, LSU. Competing, not competing?
Competing, but not as strenuously as Florida. I feel like LSU oftentimes has specific guys in mind. While I feel like a guy like Napier is definitely on the radar just because he has been recruiting that state,
Yep.
I think they're looking for that big fish hire. So I don't necessarily think that, like, more than likely they're trying to lure a Jimbo Fisher type coach away from a school like A&M before they're targeting an in-state G5 coach like Napier.
I'm going to say this. I think they might be reaching out to Jimbo. That might be their first choices. I'll give you my straight up who I think they're going to get. It's going to be Dave Aranda.
You think so?
Aranda, the coach at Baylor, the defensive coordinator when they won the national title. He was there for multiple years, had multiple good defenses, very familiar with the school. I think he's gone. I think he's there. I think they called about Jimbo. I think they called about some other guys who aren't really their current situations. And I think he's going to be like their 3. I think Napier's probably their 5 or 6. But I think it's going to be Aranda, unless, as we talk about the next one.
Yep.
Let's talk USC, University of Southern California. Competing, not competing?
Not competing.
Me either. I think LSU might be competing with them for Aranda. Because Aranda is a California guy. And if you take the lay of the land, do you go back to do you go back home at a program that essentially needs a little bit of a rebuild? That's going to be interesting. But we were going to talk about this in trickle down, but I think we've got to mention it right here. James Franklin ain't going there.
Yep.
And we're going to talk.
And I think that's the big thing. Once James Franklin got extended, that really kind of changed the game. Yeah. That really kind of changed the game in terms of who USC was going to be targeting. And I think that took a lot of the other guys that we were potentially, worried about from the trickle-down perspective out of play.
Yeah. Can I ask this? And we're going to talk about a few more schools, but we're going to talk about the trickle-down. Penn State's now off the table. And people are – it was kind of this shocker of, man, that's a long extension. Your Penn State, in the last 5 years, you've been to 3 New Year's Six Bowls. You've won a Big Ten title. You beat Ohio State. You beat Michigan.
Yep.
You can say what you will. You say what you will. And I'm going to go if this was Justin Fuente in the last 5 years. If Justin Fuente in the last 5 years had won the ACC, went to 3 New Year's Bowls, would we extend him 10 years? Probably. People can say, well, he's got a dry personality. I don't give a damn about his personality. He is winning, and he is winning to a point to where he's going to big games all the time.
Yeah.
It's like they're understanding their niche, right? They're understanding we're going to have probably once every 5 years where the team is together where we can make a run. And we're happy with that.
Well, they recruit well enough where, they're always going to be competitive even if they're not necessarily winning that division, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Always competitive. Even this year in kind of a down year for them, if they beat Michigan State, they're going to have 8 wins, probably go to a solid bowl, have a chance to win 9.
Yep.
A couple years before that, winning 10 and 11 games. I think whoever the AD in that base understands this is where we need to be. Now, one program that had been like that for close to 20 years is the next one we'll talk about, TCU. And I'll say I think we're competing with them, but they did get the jump and haven't really made a move yet. And then the story broke that Sonny Dykes is likely there. Does that shock you?
It doesn't shock me. It's a good fit overall for them. It's kind of Sonny Dykes in the Texas area is essentially kind of doing the same things that some of the other guys we've talked about heavily in the last show are doing closer to our geographic footprint. So that kind of makes sense for them.
Yeah.
And because of that takes somebody else out of play that's not directly competing.
Now I'll ask this. If you're the SMU AD, is Fuente your one, or is what happened at Virginia Tech? Because SMU, let's just kind of go with. They had Chad Morris, had good success. Dykes has picked up kind of where Chad left off and had good success. Do you turn to Justin Fuente?
I think Fuente's in that discussion. I don't think he's necessarily their one, but I think he's probably their 2 or 3.
All right. Makes sense. Obviously, the last two are the two schools out west, UW and Wazoo. I don't really see them competing for us. I think their hires will be interesting.
Yeah.
But I can't see two upper Northwest schools coming after anybody in the South or Southeast. And yes, I know Auburn hired a Boise coach, which was completely unexpected. But, you know, I think here's what I'd like to look at.
Okay.
Whoever UW hires, I'd like to compare them to our hire because I can see a lot of similarities with us and UW as an overall program style. It's not the last 10 years because Peterson went there, went to the playoff, won the Pac-12 several times, had a really good record. But I think looking at who they hire and who we hire and kind of doing a tit for tat, like, you know, are we in the same ballpark? Or it's like, man, they hired this guy and this guy's 4 times better than what we got.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yep. All right. So, Brian, we've already kind of mentioned it, the trickle-down effect. Obviously, Penn State out, thank goodness. But let's talk about ones we think. We already mentioned Dave Aranda with Baylor. I don't think Billy Napier, any of the guys, I feel like that's going to be such a weird job to go take.
Yeah.
And with Texas Tech and TCU already open, already chasing after guys, they are going to, if Aranda does go, because Aranda might have to wait until if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma, Baylor gets the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
So you're almost having to wait really a long, long time for Baylor in this case. Like if LSU swoops in, they sign the contract. Baylor's literally looking for the week before signing day to get a new coach. That's going to be a tough one.
That's going to be a tough one. And I think they probably – I wonder if they're already like eyeing somebody in particular as well, thinking that Aranda might be one of those guys that's going to be getting picked off there. Or if they may be willing to push some chips in and extend him so that's something that doesn't happen.
Maybe. That would be really interesting if Baylor were able to hold on to him, especially with the 2 jobs he's essentially linked to. All right, it was mentioned last week that kind of Manny Diaz was playing for his job. I still think Manny Diaz is out. You know, new AD, more money being pushed.
Yeah.
They're almost in a Fuente situation, but they don't have COVID to fall back on not to fire him.
Yeah, and they're in a situation where they're kind of struggling with mediocrity as well. They're probably a little bit ahead of us in terms of recruiting and a little bit ahead of us in terms of, you know, what type of record they have. They've had a little bit higher highs recently and not quite as many valleys.
Yep.
But yeah, I think if you didn't have the new AD coming in, I think you could make a case for Manny Diaz staying at least another year. I don't know if you can make that case right now, just because with the new AD, kind of all bets are off. Is that new AD going to give an extra year, or is that new AD going to go ahead and pull the trigger and get his guy in there?
Yep. Who do you think his guy would be, though?
That's a good question because I think Florida schools in particular are going to be in that direct conflict with us in terms of going after coaches. So the question is, do they make the call soon enough where they're in any sort of play to impact, you know, what we're doing, what Florida's doing? You know, us in Florida may already have the pick actually sewn up. We just haven't been able to officially announce it.
True. See, with them, I think it's completely different. I think they've got the hire in Mario Cristobal.
Okay.
I think you can – I mean, okay, the guy played on the 91 championship team, started O-line, played in the 92 championship game. He has been a successful coach. He was there for a while during the Coker era. And I think you just pick up and say, listen, this is yours. Do you want to come home?
Yeah.
And for
I can see that.
And you sit there and say, well, would he really want to do that? There's money at Oregon. All right, here's the deal, and this is a little ego thing. Mario Cristobal's coached to close to 20 years. In the last 10, he's been at nothing but high-profile jobs. He's making over $5.5 million at Oregon. I don't think he worries about money. I think Mario Cristobal's got $20 million in the bank, maybe a little less. He's definitely got probably 8 figures. For him, though, to have the championship ring on his finger, to be the guy who could potentially bring back the U, that's something that could never come off you.
Yeah, it's true.
I think the way he coaches, he could do it. But if that happens, then Oregon's going to be open. And all right, now Oregon to me is more of a national job. I don't think they'd be looking at anybody we're looking at. But again, it's that fallout effect, right? Could Oregon opening up trickle something? Could they get somebody from a school that might impact us?
Yeah, that's the big thing. Because right now we don't really know what that's going to look like. They do have a bigger national footprint, but I don't know if their national footprint really is going to be targeting, kind of those top 3 or 4 guys that we're looking at. I could see them going big time Power 5 defensive coordinator. I could see them going defensive or offensive coordinator. I could see them going targeting a head coach or a former head coach and picking them off. They really have a lot of options, but I don't necessarily think that they necessarily step on our toes very much either.
Yeah, theirs would be more of a trickle down, like even further trickle down effect, depending on where they pulled from. But so much of their stuff has been internal hires. You go all the way back, it was like Chip Kelly was the OC there, Helfrich was the OC there, Cristobal was the OC there. They haven't made a true hire. They haven't made a true hire outside of their internal workings since the 90s.
Yeah, which that's kind of wild.
I mean, go up and look for it. It was Rich who came there in 90s. Then they hired Bellotti, and Bellotti was there for a decade. He brought in Chip, and it's crazy that happened. It's crazy that they've been as competitive.
Yeah, it's crazy that they've been able to keep it internal, but still have really been relevant, if not damn good, the entire time.
Yeah, Taggart's the only one. He lasted 1 season. That's it.
Yep.
Crazy. All right, Brian, before we get into Know the Enemy for the True Hate Week, we are going to take a quick pause with the message from our digital partners.
As we take a quick break, we'd like to tell you about getting your free website report from our digital partner, Grassroots Digital Marketing Studio. They'll tell you how your website ranks on Google, on-site SEO, and social media. No commitment to buy anything. You can get your free report by visiting grassrootsdigitalstudio.com/free-website-report. Now back to the episode.
All right, as I look up here, we are down 19-13.
19-15.
19-15.
Yep.
Under 10 minutes to go. Definitely got to be proud of how they're hanging in there.
19-17. Storm Murphy with the reverse.
Oh, I'm watching this. Oh, got a foul here. Oh, they didn't call a foul. Here it is. All right, let's get to it, Brian. Know the Enemy. We are playing for the Commonwealth Cup, the University of Virginia. Hate. And Brian.
Eli Manning.
Heard them. So we got to start with their offense. Just putting up some unbelievable numbers this year. One of the top offenses in the country, and there ain't no way to downplay that.
No, and they've been doing work, man. They've been doing absolute work.
And they're led by Brennan Armstrong, the 6'2", 215-pound quarterback out of Shelby, Ohio, who was a 3-star when he came out. Believe it or not, originally a Minnesota commit.
Oh,
ooh,
okay.
And right now he's number 3 in passing in the country with missing a full game. 4,044 yards, top 10 in touchdowns, 30 touchdowns, 9 interception. He also leads the team in rushing attempts. Definitely, obviously, a reason why he was probably injured, but he also has gotten 7 touchdowns, 65% completion. There is like nothing to fill there. What are you seeing on the tape, and what do we have to watch out for?
Yeah, probably the biggest thing, and the biggest thing that he's improved in since last year when we saw him, is that decision making. A lot quicker with his decision making, knowing where he wants to go with the football, and that's the biggest thing that he's improved since last year. Really accurate with his passes, especially in the short and intermediate game, and he does a really good job of escaping pressure and throwing on the run. So he's not just it's not there, I'm taking off. He does a good job of getting outside the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, and throwing and hitting the man in stride. And he can also hurt us with his legs, design runs, but also scrambles and keepers.
Yeah, and with the rushing, he's right at about 300 yards for the year. So it's not like he is a Braxton type threat where you give him a seam, he can take it 40 yards. But if you give him a little seam, he's going to make you pay with probably picking up a first down.
Yeah, I mean, his athleticism is very similar to like Kenny Pickett's. He's probably maybe just a shade faster, but probably not quite as much feel for it as Pickett has at this point.
Yeah, he's got. You talk about the faster. I think he's quicker to get out, where Pickett is more in the pocket, right? More mobile in the pocket. You see Armstrong a lot of times, if he gets in trouble, he kind of humps outside because essentially, probably you kind of already made the point. He throws good on the run.
Yeah.
Right. So if I get outside, I trust my arm. But if they give me enough of a crease, I'm going to go up and get 4 or 5 yards.
Yep.
So, he's wearing a flag jacket. So need to hit him, need to make him feel those injured ribs. I don't condone violence, but it is strategic. Now, Brian, he is throwing to a pretty talented wide receiving core or receiving core in general. And I want to start with the Dontavion Wicks, wide receiver who was a 4-star by 247 out of Plaquemine, Louisiana, 6'1", 210. He did not play in 2020. So even more surprising to see how much he's developed this year with 54 receptions, 1,148 yards, over 20 per catch.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
Big thing. And he's making them pay. He's scoring a touchdown on just about 16% of every ball he catches. So if you give him 10, he's probably going to catch at least one for a touchdown on Saturday. And that 1148 is top 10 in the country. So he is one of those elite wide receivers. What does the tape tell about what he does for Brennan Armstrong?
So he's their best deep threat on the team, and it's not just throwing it deep to him. He's got really good run after the catch. He's got good speed, great route runner. Seeing him being this polished at route running is pretty impressive for him. And when he's in those situations where he matched up against a defender, he does a good job of high pointing the ball and winning those kind of one-on-one battles. So really kind of the all-around complete receiver that you like, especially the fact that he can do a lot after the catch and turn a quick hitter into a big play.
Yeah. Now, let me ask this, Brian. Something I was mentioning to you earlier this week. Is he sort of the is he like Miami has 3 and 4 of them? Is he the only one that UVA has like Miami?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's probably the only elite level player on this group. This group is deeper than Miami, but they are not quite as top end at every position as Miami. So they've got probably 5 or 6 guys that can go out there and produce in a given game. But they've only got one that can really kind of break the game open, and that's Wicks.
Got it. All right. Well, speaking of one of those other options, they've got Keontae Thompson, the football player. I'm sorry, that's still the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It's corny, man.
It
Like,
corny as shit.
Call him OW, offensive web, like that. At least football player can apply to me.
Does he play offensive line? No, then he's not a true football player, Bronco, you noob. He was a Mississippi State transfer, and him coming out, he was a pretty highly coveted quarterback. He was a 4-star, a top 5 dual threat quarterback, and didn't quite pan out. Give him credit for being willing to take on something new. We know a lot of players who will not do that. But so far this year, 244 yards on the ground, averaging over 6 a carry. He's got 4 touchdowns that way. 70 receptions for 882 yards, over 12 per receptions, only a couple touchdowns there. So easy 1,000 from, scrimmage. I'm kind of interested, Brian, when you were looking at the tape, how did they get him the ball running? What were they doing exactly?
So it was usually out of motion, but sometimes they'd even line him up in the backfield, either in shotgun or like pistol behind the quarterback. So they get him involved in a lot of different ways. They like to line him up at wide receiver. They'll get him going that way. It's a lot of different ways they get him involved in the football game. They really kind of use him mostly as a hybrid H-back wide receiver. That's probably the most descriptive thing that you could apply to him.
Okay.
But he's got good hands for a guy that wasn't a wide receiver, kind of out the gate there. So it's interesting to see how he's progressed from last year, because he's definitely more of a offensive threat this year than he was last year. He was really more of a gadget type player last year.
Yeah. Again, give him credit, give them credit for convincing him to listen. You can be a wide receiver H-back. Does he block any? Or
he does. It's not his forte. I'd say he's average at best. But sometimes all you need is a guy to get in the way. And so they usually scheme him in an area where if he gets in the way, he's probably doing most of his job.
Got it. All right. Next guy we want to talk about definitely is, probably used a little more in the blocking game. Jelani Woods, the tight end, 6'7", 275 pounds. The Oklahoma State transfer, was a 3-star when he came out. So far this year, solid numbers for a tight end, not going crazy or anything. 37 receptions, 534 yards, just over 14 per reception, 7 touchdowns. So obviously, along with Wicks, definitely a favorite target as they get down into the red zone and for some big pass plays. Yep. What is the tape telling us? Again, on these, this is one of those when he was transferring and they saw him going to UVA. I remember we kind of have conversations like this is a guy that would probably be good for us, but of course we didn't go after him.
Yeah, and I mean he's kind of the all-around tight end. Does a really good job with the kind of stick movers in terms of the receiving threat. They will split him out. They'll do a couple different things with him. He's not just an inline guy. And he's an average blocker, so they really aren't great in the run game, and he doesn't bring a whole lot to that, but he's good enough where they will line him up in line. They will also line him up split out wide. So, I mean, really good player, but more of a threat in the passing game than being an asset in the running game.
Got it. Sorry. Big 3-pointer right there from, who is that? From Allen to cut it to 3. It's kind of crazy because you would think somebody with that big of a body would be a lot better in pass. So, but you also think, well, he's coming from a Big 12 school. How much did they actually use him in doing that?
Yeah.
Again, I would have loved to have somebody like this on our team, but it is what it is. All right, Brian, last piece we're going to hit here is going to be their running game and their offensive line. They really don't have one standout running back. It's kind of the quarterback, Keontae Thompson, and 3 other guys, and it's Wayne Talapapa, Mike Collins, and Devin Darrington are kind of carrying the weight there in some way. And the offensive line, Brian, not a good pass pro offensive line, at least based on the stats. 121st in sacks allowed at 38, 121st in tackles for loss allowed. 92nd in tackles for loss, 53. So they are giving up, roughly a little over 9, behind the line of scrimmage tackles a game.
Yep.
And the rushing offense is 97, just about 127 a game. So similar to Miami's numbers, what do we can we get a pass rushing like we did last week?
We should be able to get a good pass rush. They're really bad in the run game. We kind of talked about it there. So bad in the run game. Overall, a below average unit in pass pro. Armstrong being able to break, contain in the pocket, being able to run, makes them look even better than the numbers show. And they're really bad run blocking. You talked about the trio there. Talapapa is kind of the plotter. He'll get them yards. They'll bring in Hollins as kind of the mix it up back. He's a little bit more of a kind of one cut and go, and that helps them a little bit. But they really most everything that they gain in the running game is because of the threat of the passing game.
All right. So if the passing game, if we can contain that in the slightest, this isn't like Pitt. Where Pitt, we kind of got that passing game under control, but they're good enough running the ball where they essentially suck the clock dry, where especially the way the offense played that day, we had no chance.
They don't have an Abanikanda on their team. They don't have an offensive line that can get them to the edge consistently, and that's the two things that Pitt could still do.
All right. So let's take a note of that, folks, that if it gets into one of these scrum games and we are somehow shutting down their passing attack, they don't have that to lean back on, unlike Syracuse, unlike Pitt, and a couple of the losses we had this year. All right, Brian, let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. This defense is bad.
Yeah.
And when they hired Bronco Mendenhall, 6 years ago, next week, my first thought was, well, they're never going to be bad defensively. They're wretched defensively. Scoring defense, 102nd in the nation. They're giving up 32 points a game. Run defense, they're giving up 217 yards per game. I like the sound of that. Their total defense is 121st, giving up 466. So they're giving up another 250 passing. There's one thing they're good at, and it's probably because they've only been down there not as many times as most teams, is their red zone defense is 27th in the nation. 46 trip. They've given up 35 scores, 24 are touchdowns. So they're not like elite.
Yeah.
They're still giving up 2/3 is touchdowns. But what kind of defense are they running? And let's talk about Nick Jackson, Brian.
Yeah, so let's start with the front. It's a 3-3-5, kind of multiple front. They'll go into a 2-4 look. They'll go into a 3-4 look, but the base defense is a 3-3-5. And this is kind of a change from the previous few years where they were running more of a 3-4 as their base. This is kind of the Bronco Mendenhall, like BYU look here, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. But in terms of Nick Jackson, he's their inside linebacker, and he's really probably the better of the two linebackers. He's only average against the run. He doesn't do a great job of shedding blockers, but he is their primary blitzing linebacker when they bring the inside guys, and he does a really good job there. And he's really above average in their zone coverage as well, so he helps them out and bails them out a lot of times in zone coverage.
All right. And Jackson's a 6'1", 235, as Brian said, linebacker, was a high 3-star out of Lovett School down in Atlanta. let me ask this, Brian. So you talk about him being good on the blitz. He's got 2.5 sacks. For a linebacker, that's not a bad number. Another 3 tackles for loss. Why is his tackle number so good at 107? I mean, that's an ungodly amount of tackles. Is it more of him cleaning up, or is it more of he's good in coverage, so he's where he's supposed to be all the time?
It's a little bit of that, the latter there. He's not as quick to get off blocks, but it also puts him in a position where if it gets to the second level, sometimes he's the guy cleaning it up, but he's cleaning it up 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 yards downfield, not meeting guys in the hole.
Oh, okay. So it's one of those things where the numbers is he's doing his job, but he's just not doing it. He's doing it average to below average.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
All right, next guy I want to hit on here, Brian, is Joey Blunt, the 6'2", 205 defensive back. He's a mid 3-star. He was at a Landmark Christian in Fairburn, Georgia. 77 tackles, 4 for loss. Really high number for a safety. 3 picks, along with 3 pass defended. Is he in the box safety, or is he a free?
So he's their free safety, but he ends up they'll either drop him deep, but sometimes they'll bring him in on robber type coverage where he'll be kind of playing underneath in that second level of the defense instead of on the top end. He makes some of the back end issues they have kind of go away a little bit, so that helps. But he does also come on blitzes, but if he ever gets matched up in man situations, he does get beat. So they try to not match him up in man very often, but when he's in zone, he's a pretty good defender.
All right, so one of those things, I would say if we had a pretty good passing offense, like let's go 4 wide and force him to come down or force them to go to some sort of dime package where they're taking one of their better linebackers off the field, but obviously we can't do that. So can you run at him?
You can. He's actually pretty good against the run. He does a good job with tackling, so that's the big thing. Sometimes he will miss a fit. Sometimes he'll guess wrong, things like that, but he does a good job overall of being where he needs to be.
All right. Good deal on that. All right, let's go quickly. Let's get into the trenches here, Brian. Let's talk about Mandy Alonzo, a 6'2", 290-pound defensive lineman, a 2-star coming out of Miami, Florida. So far this season, he's got 3 sacks. He's got 6 additional tackles for loss, along with 30 tackles. And I know when I see 6 foot 290, I immediately want to say he's somewhere on the inside. But when I hear 3-3 stack, I mean, is he playing like a nose, or is he kind of moving up and down the line?
He's that DN, but he's also one of the guys that's staying in if they go to that 2-4 look. So,
okay,
when you think of DN in a 3-man front, you're getting a heavier guy, usually somewhere in the 280 to 290 range, sometimes even heavier depending on the scheme. And he does work. He's the most balanced defensive lineman that they use because he can play inside and outside depending on which front they're going with. He's their best defensive lineman against the run, and he really shows a good motor in the pass game as well. So I think that's a big thing to look out for, is that he will get after the quarterback too.
All right. Yeah, obviously 3 sacks. I think that might actually lead their team. Let me pull it up here real quick, just to show you how bad the defense is. Yes, he is leading the team with 3 sacks. So, when you talk about, is he playing like a 4 technique primarily? Or is it?
Yeah, he's playing primarily a 4.
Okay.
They'll slide him into a 3 if they go with that 2-man front.
Okay.
But he's primarily in a 4. They'll slant him inside and out there.
All right. So last person I want to talk about is Anthony Johnson, primarily because the potential of not having Trey Turner. But I wanted to look at Anthony Johnson. Brian, 6'1", 205 pounds. So far, 3 interceptions this year, 41 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 4 pass defended. He was a Louisville transfer, low 3-star, very low 3-star when he came out from Chaminade. Everybody should know Chaminade. The Maui Invitational is on this week. If you haven't seen Chaminade play, they're usually terrible. Madonna High School in Hollywood, Florida. So is he their best corner, or is he just an inside type guy?
Yeah, he's their best cover corner. He does a really good job in zone in particular. He does a good job of breaking on the ball, reacting. He will get beat in man, but he's not necessarily a liability out there either.
Okay.
He'll win some, he'll lose some. So that's an opportunity we have to kind of take advantage of them in coverage. There is maybe attack him when we see man.
All right. So I'm assuming this is going to be super important for Trey to come back then.
Yeah, because I think it will struggle if we don't have this, have him matched up a majority on Trey. That'll give some of the other guys some opportunities in this passing game. And we should still be able to pass on them regardless. But having Trey in there would definitely be a big benefit.
All right. That's what I thought. And before we flip over to the Lambda version of the Hokies, it is a 1-point game as we're getting to the end of the half here. That is an offensive foul, but
yeah, it did get called.
Call it.
They've had a quick whistle on everything else, and now they're swallowing the whistle in this last minute for no reason.
Like, he barreled into him. That was hilarious. Like, I mean, you can.
No, they still took that bad of a shot. Holy cow! Yeah.
What a shit shot!
You got 2 possessions there, and then took that shot.
That was like a full 7 or 8 inches short of the rim. That's terrible. All right, so let's flip to the Lambda version, Brian. This isn't the Lambda version this week, Brian. This is the final version of the year, and I forgot to update it. This is not Lambda. I do not want the Lambda version. We show the fucking Lambda version, we're going to lose this game. We're going to lose this freaking game.
Yeah, we don't want that one.
We do not want that one. So this week, last but not least, this is the Moo version. The Moo version. And, Brian, let's start with the offense. We ran the ball 30 times with our quarterbacks last week.
Yeah, can't do that.
So what's point number 1 that if Brad Cornelison actually had any common sense he'd do?
Well, the big thing you want to do is you want to run the ball with your running backs. The guys that you recruit to run the football. That's what you want to do.
Broken 100 in the last month.
Yeah.
Looked really good.
ACC running back of the week, the previous week before you gave him 3 carries.
3 carries. Like, makes no god awful sense. We've already shown they are terrible against the run.
Yep.
I think potentially if this team runs the ball like we have at points this year, I think we can break 300. If we break 300, this game's going to be a game in the 20s.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be nervous.
This game is all about extending our drives and keeping their offense off the field and getting touchdowns when we need to get them. So,
yeah. Something we saw last week, Brian, and both guys made some extremely good plays. Jalen Jones, Dwayne Lofton. They can't lose their red shirt. So what do we want?
Get them in the game. Get them involved. Get the youth involved. We've already got some uptick in that last week. Let's see more of that this week. Let's kind of pull out all the stops with the youth, get them out there. If they're playing well in practice, get them out there. Let's see what they can do. We need all hands on deck.
Yep. And when they showed last week, they were ready for big moments. Dwayne Lofton with the touchdown catch and with that 4th down conversion catch, and Jalen Jones over the middle showing no fear, getting popped, holding on to the ball, getting a big first down. And it's going to be one of those things too, where if we don't see them, I think us as a fan base on Saturday afternoon are just going to get a little more angry. Like, these guys showed you they could do it.
Yep.
And now you're pulling them off the field. Because I think some of the sets you can go with Jones, with Lofton, with Tay, with Caleb, with Trey, you could give them some real problems So attack them.
Yep.
All right, Brian. I mentioned it earlier. The one good thing UVA is they are a decent red zone defense team. We have to have some big plays.
Yeah, we're going to have to score from outside the 20 at least a couple times here. So we need some big plays that turn into points.
Now, the honest truth is, if you've watched them play this year, they can surrender them. Don't.
Yep.
It ain't like they're lighting the world up. They can surrender those big plays. So I think popping it, like you said, I think at least 2. I think if we get 2, it's going to be a competitive game. I think if we get more than 2, I think they could be in a world of hurt. Because if we're popping a couple big running plays off and we get one big passing play, I know it favors we're getting into the 30s, kind of favors them. Well, the issue is if we're running the ball like that, there's going to be some drives where we extend, right?
Yep.
We're going to pop some. We're going to have extended drives, and eventually their defense is going to be done. And if that comes to case where it's late in the game and it's a tie game and you're just running the ball at will, just run, slow the tempo down.
Yep.
Run, slow the tempo down. Run, slow the tempo down. Where you're going to force Armstrong, who has at times can make errors. All right, one last piece here, Brian. It was the big killer last week, and it was against a defense who wasn't that good. We're against a defense that, again, is not that good at sacking the quarterback.
Yep. If we can limit the negative plays and limit sacks, then we should be able to put some points on this board, on this team, and move the ball well. They don't sack the quarterback much. They don't throw folks for a ton of tackles for loss. We can't let something that's their weakness turn into any sort of asset to them in this game.
Yep. And it's essentially what we did for Miami. And, yes, it's a 38-26 game, but some of those plays where it looked like we were going to get the ball moving, we took a big sack. We took a big tackle for loss, and it slowed the momentum down. And it's one of those weird things, right? Well, they're not good at it, but they had a lucky game. No. When a team has a lucky game like that, it's essentially on you to not let the worst part of their game become a strength.
Yep.
We're going into this game where we thought, right, Brian, let's talk about defense now. We're going into this game thinking, looking at the Miami game, while we predicted the game, our back end had been solid all year with the way we mixed coverages and everything.
Yep.
There were 2 games we discussed right before we got on here. If we have preferences on the back end of Miami and Syracuse, we're not winning this game. We are not winning this game. You take any of the other 9 games, and I know West Virginia, we got burned a couple times. In every game, we got burned a couple times. But overall, the back end had played well. What do we have to do, Brian?
Got to go back to the coverages that we've seen have success against this type of offense. Really, I mean, if we want to look at a mirror, let's look at how we played against Pitt and try to replicate that, because Pitt tries to do a lot of the same type of things in the passing game that UVA does, and has a similar type of quarterback that has that athleticism, but also good at slinging it downfield, good in the intermediate game. So need to try to mirror some of that. Definitely less cover 2 than we saw last week.
Less cover 2.
Burn cover 2. Yeah, burn it.
The only time we need to be playing cover 2 is if we're up like 17. Like truly, if we're up 17, please, then you can call a cover 2. You know something else, Brian, last week, if we go back and look at Duke compared to last week, I felt like on Duke, and I know they had a younger quarterback, and they're not a good team. We brought a lot more pressure.
Yeah.
Do you think
we were definitely sitting back more against Miami. I feel like this is one of those where if you can press the issue with the quarterback a little bit, make them make some mistakes, I think that plays in your favor. I know he can sling it around, but if you're not getting to him with 4, you need to try something else, because I'd much rather maybe have some sort of vacated area in the defense but rush the quarterback than not rush the quarterback and let him sit back and find all those windows.
Yeah. We've mentioned his athleticism, and he has a little bit. But his athleticism isn't going to be gaining massive chunks every time.
Yeah.
I think the risk is worth the reward. I think the risk of him potentially getting 7 to 12 yards on a broken play is worth the reward of sacking him 3-4 times, getting them well behind the sticks, making as the coverage you like that Ham runs best is when we run that quarters coverage. Let's get in. It's 3rd and 15. Get in quarters.
Yeah.
Getting quarters lining across the field.
Cover 4, cover 6. Do it.
Do it. All right. Next piece on defense, Brian. And you tell me what you meant by this, because this was a couple of days ago we talked about it. Mixing up the underneath coverages. Explain that again. Like, what do you want to see? And when I'm thinking this is going to be linebackers, Chamari, and maybe whoever's playing Rover.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we're running some man with those underneath guys. I want to see that we're bringing some of the safeties into the box, into that second level of coverage instead of having them deep. I want to keep Armstrong guessing about not knowing who is defending what area of the zone, who's manning up on who. The more we can keep him guessing, the more he can't just hit those intermediate routes at will.
All right. What about the whole – I think I mentioned this to you the other day about sometimes sending the blitz and forcing the throws over the middle. Like, are you okay – I think we would have been okay with Miami with Van Dyke. Are you okay with them having to put together 8 to 10 play drives?
Yeah, I mean, the more we can force them to have to drive the field, the more they could potentially make some mistakes and give us the ball back or stop a drive that ends short of scoring range or ends in 3 instead of 6. I mean, that's really what you're trying to do here.
All right. So when you're talking about the underneath stuff, it's more of essentially trying to give them a confusing look. But I guess in some cases, if we're giving you the middle of the field, take the middle of the field. You get 6 yards, we tackle you, but you have to throw again. You're not getting 16, you're not getting 26 downfield.
Well, and if you're going to, again, you show them one thing, that drive, you give up 6, but then you show them something different the very next play, and now he's thinking more. So I think that's what you want to do. Don't get comfortable with one look on those underneath guys. Mix it up so he's not sure what you're throwing at him next. And they're 8 times out of 10 are going to be throwing the ball. So
yep, it's true, because we've already said that they don't have a good run game. And much like the way we ended the defensive section, we're going to end the offensive section. We cannot let this run game hurt us.
Yep.
This run game needs to be at 120, their average, or below.
Yep. Absolutely. You can't let something that is a weakness of your opponent become an asset. And we said it with the offensive side for us. Got to limit the sacks and negative plays. Same on defense. Can't let the run game hurt you. Can't let them average over 4.5 yards a carry. Keep them at or below their average, which I believe is 4.3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so keep them below that. Keep them behind the sticks. If they decide to run the ball, make them pay for it by having to throw the ball further the next down.
Yeah. And again, I think another thing for us too is going to be the passing game when it comes to the offense. We're averaging about 180. I think if we get over 200 passing to go with 250 plus rushing, I think we win this game.
Yeah.
And let's flip to it, Brian. Let's flip through the predictions. It's going to be really funny regardless what happens Saturday. Justin Fuente is gone. And in essentially the worst 6-year run of Virginia Tech football since we were basically this tall.
Yep.
You might have been this tall. I was probably this tall. You were probably a little taller. They've only beat us once. If they pull out the win Saturday, they beat us twice. They celebrate. But we get to laugh and say, we got rid of the problem. But for the life of me, Brian, I can't do it. I can't pick them. I don't think I'll ever be able to pick them. And I'm going to say it is going to be a war with them. I think the defense holds a few times. And I think in the end, with about 40 seconds left, Malachi Thomas punches one in from about 8 yards out to take the lead 35-34. I think we're going to wear that defense down. We're late in the game. We're going to run at will, and we're going to be able to milk the clock with about 6 or 7 minutes left. And when they can't stop it, they're going to know it's over.
Yep. I'm with that. I'm really close to you. I'm actually 34-31 Hokies. I think this is one where they take the lead. We get a late drive. We stick it in for a touchdown late to retake the lead. They're not able to do anything with the time left.
Yep. And I think the team's up. I think just listening to the players talk, I think the team is up for this week. I think J.C. Price is going to have them up.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a war. It's going to be a war. I don't know what the stadium's going to look like. That's going to be the interesting piece. It's 3:45. I got asked by someone, was I going up Saturday?
Fourth side.
Jesus Christ. Was I going up Saturday? Like, I'm not. If you are, go for it. Dominate it up there. All right, Brian. We got to pick some games here before we close out tonight. Last week, Brian, are we counting the UVA game? I need to know.
Let's count it. Let's count it. I said that Armstrong was going to play, and he did, so I can't really say that we should not count it.
All right. You went 5-6. I went 7-4 because I am counting the Marshall UNCC game, which we both got right.
Yeah.
Brian 52-59-1 for the, or excuse me, 59-52-1 for the year. I'm 64-44-1 for the year. And we're going to do, it's a lot of rivalry games this week. We're going to do 11 games. And let's start, Brian, UNC, NC State, Friday. NC State laying 6 points. What do you think on this game? Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I've got the honor, don't I?
Go for it.
Apologies, big guy.
You're good.
I'm going to take NC State. I think NC State's just a better overall team. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think NC State wins by 10. They probably win somewhere like 34-24, 38-28. But I think if we see Carolina when you have a decent defense, things don't go great for them.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think it's going to be NC State as well. I think it's going to be a touchdown. It's going to be one of those tight covers there, but I think NC State takes care of it. I still don't know what to think about this UNC team. It's one of the most baffling teams I've seen just because of their talent, their offensive ability, but their inability to do it well against good defenses and do it consistently enough where, you know, if they're facing a team that has a decent offense, that they can overcome that because their defense is pretty bad.
All right. In Friday, 7:00 for that game. Let's go to the next one, Brian. BC versus Wake. Wake playing for everything. Wake wins. They are in the ACC championship game. They lose. It's a bunch of other stuff. It's either NC State or Clemson.
Yep.
Wake is a 5-point road favorite up at BC. What do you think on this one, Brian?
I went with Wake last week, and they let me down. I'm going to go with Wake again, though. I think they close it out. I think they end up taking care of business this week a lot better than they did last week, and I think they get about a 10-point victory here.
Yep. I'm with you on that, especially after BC last week. They let me down against FSU. They made FSU look super relevant again. So I don't think, I think 5 is like that perfect number. I think it's about a touchdown game, probably like 28-21, maybe a little higher. But Jurkovec, I think Jurkovec is kind of becoming a story. He's definitely got to come back next year. It sucks for him because I think if he plays a full year and has a good season, I think that guy's in the NFL next year. But in this case, I'm going to definitely take Wake on this one.
Yep.
Oh, this one's going to be fun right here, Brian. Clean old-fashioned hate in Atlanta, where it will probably be more red and black than gold and blue as Georgia Tech takes on Georgia. This line First of all, the over-under is 54. Okay.
Okay.
The line is Georgia laying 35. So someone is predicting that Georgia Tech's going to get 10 points.
Yeah. I don't see that happen.
No. This is one of those legal limit, as much as you've got, put your mortgage on it. Georgia is going to win by 50.
Yeah, this shouldn't be close at all. I'll go all the way.
Yeah, 35 is just not enough. Georgia Tech, they played like shit last week against Notre Dame. I mean, absolute shit.
Yep.
And you've got a team that's coming in here prepping to get ready. They're going to get roughhoused. All right, Brian, let's go down to the swamp. I fired Dan Mullen. Florida is still a 2.5-point favorite versus FSU. Does the firing spell the tribes up get the Gators going? This is for bowl eligibility. Winner goes to a bowl, loser does not.
Yeah, man. I like FSU here. Call me crazy. They are playing some good ball right now. They're not great, but they're good enough. And I think that's what's going to kind of get them over the edge here. Their front is going to eat that Florida offensive lineup, I think, and that's going to be the difference.
It absolutely is. I'm with you. We're agreeing on everything. Brian's not being able to play catch up, but it's better to be right than to just be contrarian, right?
I can catch up in bowl season.
Yeah. When we pick them all, you got championship week too. You can just go opposite every game on championship week and every game in the bowl. And
there we
go. What happens. So I'm with you, FSU. I think the firing of Mullen, I think that's at the timing it is, and they're going through a complete rebuild. A lot of the guys that on that coaching staff aren't going to be coming back. So if Florida State's getting points, give me that. All right. Duke, Miami. This game is going to be at Duke. It's going to be a great visual sight there. 21's not enough. I don't know. I mean, I know Miami's not great defensively, but an over-under of 68. You're telling me Duke's going to get to the mid-20s on them? No.
Yeah.
No. Miami wins the game 49-14. 21's way, 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 way too little to lay.
Yeah, I'm 100% with that. I think this is going to be probably a 4-score game. So I'm going to go Miami here as well. Duke is bad. Bad.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be an interesting, Brian. The Fighting Shane Beamers, who got bowl eligible last week. The South Carolina Gamecocks come off Clemson with obviously their best game of the year. I'm going to make sure this line hasn't changed because this is a big line. Clemson is laying 11.5. The game ends at South Carolina. The over-under is 43. Who are you taking here?
Man, this was a tough one because Shane's got them competitive. Clemson's finally playing some good football last couple weeks, at least as good as they've been this whole season.
Since Georgia.
Yeah.
Since Georgia.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Gamecocks.
All right. Brian's going with the Cox. With Clemson playing good, especially as good as that defense is, I am going to go Clemson. I think Clemson probably wins by 14. Clemson's offense gotten a little bit of a pocket last week against what's usually a solid weight defense. We've seen holes at times.
Yeah.
South Carolina, just the one thing they don't do good is they give up close to over 170 rushing yards a game. I think that's going to be their struggles. They also are a team that is not good on third downs. So I think Clemson wins because the South Carolina defense isn't as good as it needs to be.
Okay.
I do think that over-under is about right. I think it's like a 28-14 game, but I'm going to go Clemson on this one. All right, battle for the Bluegrass State, UK versus Louisville. Louisville's laying 3. I have no clue how Louisville's laying 3. We've seen Kentucky compete with Georgia. They've only got 3 losses. Louisville has been such an up-and-down team. I am going to go Kentucky in this game.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I think Louisville has been potent offensively, but I think Kentucky, between the what they do with the with their defense, is going to make that Louisville offense struggle. So,
all right. This is one of those classic ACC rivalry games next, Brian. Pitt versus Syracuse in the Dome. Pitt laying 13. Syracuse fighting for bowl eligibility. Pitt's locked up the Coastal going to the ACC championship game. Pitt, can I say this?
Yep.
Ed Narduzzi's been there 7 years. This is his first chance at a 10-win season ever there.
That's wild.
Is that what you want to be as a program? Do you want to be Pitt?
No.
Good to know. So, are you laying? Or are you taking?
I'll take Pitt. I think Pitt gets it done. It's hard to tell with Syracuse what team's going to show up.
Yeah.
And if they can't get going with Sean Tucker, if he doesn't have a day in which he is satisfied with his performance, then it could be a struggle bus for them.
It's very true. And I'm going to take Pitt as well. And it's not so much that they've got everything locked up and they're obviously the better team. But this is kind of what I want to think about. If you're Pitt, you legitimately have a chance to win the ACC. Robbie, thank you. They literally have a chance to, win the ACC. This team has not won a conference title in over 15 years. Excuse me, in over 10 years. When they won the Big East, as the Big East was slowly dissolving. It's been over 10 years. So I think Narduzzi is going to say, keep the hammer down. We need to go into whoever we're playing next week with a good mentality.
Good momentum. Yeah.
We don't need to crap the bed against Syracuse and go lose. So I'm going to take Pitt as well. All right, Brian, let's jump out of conference here. And let's start with the Thursday night game, one of the most heated rivalries in any state, the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State versus Ole Miss. Mississippi State is a 2-point favorite in this game. Essentially, they are saying these teams are even, and the cowbell, we need more cowbell, is going to be the difference.
That's what it sounds like, but I'm going with the Fighting Lane Kiffins here.
I am too, because I think Ole Miss is a better overall team on both sides of the ball. Now, I will say this, the over-under 64, I think that's going to go way, way, way over. Because it's the last game of the season. Both teams are bowl eligible. They're playing for the egg. I think both these coaches are going to pull out all the stops. Give me the over, but give me Ole Miss to win this game. Give me the extra 2 points.
All right.
Next rivalry game. This is a pretty big one, too. Oklahoma State in Stillwater with the paddles. It is Bedlam. Okie State is in the championship game regardless. Oklahoma must win to get there to play Oklahoma State again. If Oklahoma State wins, they play Baylor. Okie State's 7 in the most recent college football playoff. They beat Oklahoma and beat Baylor again, and just 1 or 2 things happens in front of them, they sneak in. I think Oklahoma State is the better overall team. They're definitely the better defense. So I'm going to stick on this. I'm going to go Okie State. I'm going to lay the 4 points. Just because they're fighting for everything, where Oklahoma, so much has to happen. They have to win, and have to jump multiple teams. And I don't think they can jump Notre Dame. I think Okie State can.
Yeah, I think I'll put Okie State in there as well. Oklahoma's just been so up and down, and I think when they play good defenses, they tend to struggle. So I think that's what's going to be the difference.
Yep. We saw that against Baylor. Very good, solid defense. They struggled all game long. All right, Brian. So the biggest game this weekend is the de facto elimination game in the playoff. It's 2 versus 5. It is the big game. Michigan, Ohio State in the big house, 12 noon kick. I wish it was later. I really do. I know Fox is pushing the big noon stuff, but that game deserves to be a 3:30. Me, honestly, and I know it's never been played at night. That game deserves to be an 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It really does. Ohio State, after the throttling of Michigan State, is only laying 8 points. What do you think on this one, Brian?
I'm going to take Michigan here. I think this is going to be tight coming down to the wire. I'm not sure if Michigan's going to win outright, but I think this is going to come down to one possession. I think that Michigan team is going to do enough to slow down the squad there from Ohio State. The triplets won't be able to just completely go off like they have all season. So give me Michigan here.
Sorry if you saw me do this and look a little sad. It was a wide open jumper, rimmed in and rimmed out. Hokies down 5 right now. I'm going to take Ohio State. I am going to think this is going to be a more competitive game than it has been the last few years with Michigan. Their offense looks like I think they can keep up with Ohio State. Defense kind of becoming a modern defense, not as much man, little zone here and there. But I think in the end, Ohio State's offense is clicking. And I think they win the game somewhere like 42-30, where it's a fight to the end, but it's just a little bit more like they put one late and put it away. So I hope to take Ohio State. I'll say this. That's the one game I hope I'm wrong about. I still love Jim Harbaugh from my Niners. So, So there goes that, guys. We did disagree on a few games. Anything breaking, Brian? Anybody entered the portal? The game is a 5-point game.
It's got a bullshit call on somebody. I missed who it was.
Oh, let's see who it is here. Keeve. Oh, you're way ahead of me. Well, 5-point game. The Hokies are definitely in this game. Can we just say with this game and just the way the ACC's looked, back down to 3. The way this game has looked and as athletic and as many talented players as Memphis has, the Hokies being right there, I think this spells really good things for the ACC schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially considering the length that Memphis plays with. We're not going to see very many teams like this on the schedule. So I think that's one thing to look at. And they haven't really crushed us in the dribble drive game either. So that's got really 2 things to kind of hang your hat on, because really that should be the 2 things that we struggle with, along with rebounding. And rebounding hasn't been great, but overall they've hung in there in the other categories.
Very true. And I know they were talking about Duran only has 2 points. Nolly only has 2 points. So, very interesting to see that. So, folks, go enjoy the rest of the game. We thank you for joining us tonight. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Visit our website, boundarycornervt.com, to listen to all of our episodes. While you're there, do not forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Music. We always let our buddy Jason Long play us out. Catch him on Spotify and Apple Music. We always thank you for listening. Beat UVA.
Yep.
8 week. Let's go.
Hokies.